Ever stop and think about what just one 24-hour period can tell us about our world? Well, we're about to find out. Let's take a look at the major stories that were making waves on January 22nd, 2026.
And what a day it was. It was full of these huge contrasts. We had one nation celebrating this massive economic surge, while right next door, its neighbor was facing a demographic crisis. And while all these big geopolitical things were happening, the world of culture was saying goodbye to an icon. So let's see how all these pieces fit together.
All right, first up, let's talk about India's economy. The big story here is a nation that is absolutely on the move, about to take a huge economic leap forward.
So where's this coming from? Well, a brand new report from the State Bank of India just dropped, and it's pointing to some major reforms and just incredible growth as the reasons why. The country is literally moving into a new economic league, and it looks like there's no stopping it.
Okay, so what does that term upper middle income actually mean? It sounds a little jargony, right? But basically it's a category the World Bank uses. It's based on a country's gross national income per person, and it's a really key way to measure economic development and the overall standard of living.
So what's the magic number they need to hit? Well, to get into that club, your GNI per person needs to be somewhere between $4,000 and $4,500 US, and India is right on track to blow past that milestone.
But here's where things get really interesting. As India's economic muscle grows, a whole new question is bubbling up. Is money the only way to measure how influential a country is? And that brings us to a new way of looking at things, something that goes way beyond bombs and budgets.
I mean, it's a huge question for our times, isn't it? Should we just be looking at a country's bank account and its military, or is there something more? A new initiative is arguing for a totally different standard, one that's all about responsibility and doing the right thing.
And here it is. This is the launch of that new standard, the Responsible Nations Index. Its whole mission is to change the conversation from a country's power to its principles. We're talking about evaluating its humanity, its ethics, and just its responsible behavior on the world stage.
So, the big question, where did India land in this brand new ranking? Get this, out of 154 countries, it came in at number 16. But what makes that number so important is what it's actually measuring.
And this is the part you really got to get. This ranking has nothing, zero, to do with how big your economy is. It's all about how responsible you are, to your own citizens, to the planet, and to the world as a whole. It's a completely different way to think about what power really means.
Okay, so while India's story is all about this incredible growth, on the very same day, its neighbor was dealing with a totally different story, a story of decline. China is now staring down a really serious demographic challenge.
For most of the last 100 years, when you thought of China, you thought of its massive, always growing population. It was just a fact of life. But that's not the story anymore. The latest data shows that whole trend has slammed into reverse, big time.
Let's just look at the numbers, because they tell the whole story. First, the total population. The newest figures show it's dropped to about 1.404 billion people. That's the fourth year in a row it's gone down, a trend that used to be absolutely unthinkable.
And what's causing that drop? Well, look at the number of births, just 7.92 million in the last year. That's a huge fall from the year before.
And this number really puts it all into perspective. The birth rate has plunged to just 5.63 for every 1,000 people. That is a new all-time low. China is now facing a deep demographic crisis that's going to have consequences for years to come.
All right, so while governments are trying to figure out these huge population trends, technology is out there changing public safety right where we live. And that brings us to a really cool, award-winning innovation that is literally saving lives.
So check this out. India's Center for Development of Telematics, they go by CDOT, just won the super prestigious Scotch Award, and they won it for a truly remarkable piece of life-saving tech that they built right at home.
So, you're probably wondering, how does this thing actually work? Well, it's pretty genius. It's called the Cell Broadcast Solution. Think of it as an advanced digital warning system. It can blast out real-time alerts for things like a cyclone or an earthquake to every single cell phone in a specific area. And here's the best part, it even works when the networks are totally jammed up, which, let's be honest, is exactly when you need it the most.
And now we shift gears from tech and innovation to the world of art and culture, because on this same day, the world had to say goodbye to a true legend.
We lost Valentino Garavani, the legendary Italian master of high fashion.
He passed away at 93, and his death really does feel like the end of a golden era, an era he pretty much defined for more than 60 years.
And if there was one thing, just one thing, that could capture his entire legacy, it was this. He created his very own color, Valentino red. And it wasn't just a shade of crimson, you know? It became this global symbol of elegance, of confidence, of pure, unapologetic luxury.
For our final story from this single day, we're going to move from a cultural icon to a national hero, and end things on a really powerful note of pride and remembrance. Our snapshot of January 22nd also shows the country gearing up for something really important the next day, Parakram Divas. It's a national day, celebrating the birthday of Subhash Chandra Bose, one of India's most honored freedom fighters. It's all about celebrating his incredible, unparalleled courage and leadership.
So, there you have it. What a day, right? In just 24 hours, we saw a rising economy, a totally new way to measure a nation's responsibility, a demographic crisis, life-saving tech, and saying goodbye to legends. So when you look at all that packed into one day, you have to ask yourself, are these just random, separate stories? Or are they all connected signs of a world that is changing fast right in front of our eyes?